Described as the hack heard round the world, there was a flaw, you see, in the Apple and Amazon systems, and these are pretty big companies, and this hack sent them scrambling.
Now, to explain what happened, what people need to do, people like yourself, to protect yourself, we have Claudiu Popa joining us. He's CEO and Principal Risk Advisor at Informatica. It's a security and privacy company. So, Claudiu, good to see you, first of all. Welcome back. What happened? Who hacked into what?
Well, as is often the case, it's an independent kid in this case. It was a 19-year-old, apparently, that simply wanted to make a point and wanted to appropriate a Twitter account that he saw as being very interesting simply because it was very short. So it was a 3-character Twitter account, and he said, I want that. So he started probing, and he saw that it was linked to this gentleman's Amazon account. And he called Amazon and he said, well, I forgot my password, and I'd like you to reset it for me. And so a number of steps later, he had the password to that account. He managed to connect into a related account at Apple, and the Apple account, as is the case with many iTunes users, ends up controlling a number of their digital identity accounts. And so when that happened, that person was able to erase this reporter's laptop, managed to wipe out his cell phone, managed to wipe out his daughter's pictures, 2 years worth of baby pictures, you can imagine. And so it goes on from there. So certainly this was taken as a lesson learned by this reporter. By no means do I want it to seem like it was limited to Amazon and Apple. There's a number of organizations that have this kind of weakness in place, and it's not so much a technical one as it is a human and a policy error.
Well, I was going to say, it sounds like such a low-tech way to hack.
That's right.
That almost anyone could have done this.
Yes.
Anyone could have picked up the phone,
Absolutely.
lied a couple times,
Yes.
and done this.
It's the kind of stuff that Kevin Mitnick used to do probably 20 years ago, and he's written books about it, and it's all about social engineering. And when you socially engineer someone who's expecting to deliver service, they're almost putting pressure on themselves to help you out. So when you're calling a contact center, and we've written a white paper about this, when you call contact centers, you can perpetrate all sorts of misleading or vulnerability type of things where you're simply calling the person and you're saying that in all honesty, you've misplaced your information, and how much information do I have to give, because I've really been waiting on hold for so long, and I've been looking on your website, and your website is not helpful, your voicemail is not helpful, and so it puts pressure on these people.
So you get the right person who's flustered enough to give up the info.
That's right, exactly, and that's
so the
really what
weakness
it's
is
about.
human, it's not in the actual systems.
That's right. And so if it's accompanied by a policy issue, then that makes it that much stronger.
Yeah.
Because if the policy does not prevent contact center workers from disclosing this information, then that's a problem.
So what's your sense of how many companies function this way? I mean, these are big names. Everybody knows these big names, but could this happen at the department store? You know, can you get access through them? Can you get access through your bank? Can you get access through an insurance company?
Well, anyone who's got a contact center should be reviewing their policies. We know that it's happened at a number of other large organizations. It's happened to me, for example, with Yahoo. It's happened to clients of ours with Microsoft, for example. And so large organizations should be reviewing their contact center policies with respect to how much information is disclosed.
Well, look at Reuters, right? We were just talking moments ago, because Reuters, since Friday, has been scrambling to sort of overgo its regimen on security, maybe staffing as well, because it started with a blog. Someone infiltrated one of their blogs and was writing incorrect information about the unfolding situation in Syria.
That's right.
I mean, a lot at stake there, misinformation. So they're dealing with that. So what do we do? What do organizations do? How do you prevent sort of that human error if that's the main element?
Well, those are news heard around the world, so you can imagine the impact of that kind of false information being perpetrated through a trusted news source. So the issue there is more related to the fact that a number of individuals, possibly around the world, journalists, are responsible for logging into a content management system and independently infuse it with news and information and so on. So it's very hard to verify and to check the information that goes in. So it's a little bit distinct from the kind of service-related issues that you've got with contact centers. But the fact is, people need to keep in mind 3 things, and those 3 things are, quite frankly, one, that they should assume that at some point they're going to get hacked. And so what's the likelihood that they'll be able to restore data from backup? So that's the main thing. You need to have backed up data, and you need to be able to restore it, because that may come in handy at some point. Secondly, if you are going to get hacked, you need to know about it as soon as possible. And the way you know about it as soon as possible is, quite frankly, by separating your accounts, so that when people keep door knocking on each one of your accounts, they don't instantly, the second they
Get
crack
access to
one,
everything else.
they get access to all the other ones.
Yeah.
So you can see failed login attempts. You can see when people are requesting password resets. You can see when they're changing your credit card information on file and so on. So that's a monitoring control. And as far as preventing this kind of breach, people need to know 3 simple things. And quite frankly, one is that they should stop using passwords and start using passphrases. They're easier to remember,
like?
and more difficult to forget. More difficult to guess.
Just a little phrase.
So any phrase you can think of. So some people pick their favorite lines in poems.
Okay.
They pick their favorite book. They choose a different page in a book, and they choose different lines. Or they just simply come up with lines that incorporate some aspect of the thing that they're trying to access. But the point is that you have different passphrases for different systems. And so you've got technically a different identity on different systems. So you're not interlinking them the way Mr. Honan was interlinking them.
What's your sense
in
of
this
how
case.
many people have one password for absolutely everything they need?
It would have to be a pretty high percentage, and so
Which
we
is
see it
not
a lot.
good news.
It's not, and you can't really operate that way, especially with social media nowadays, where you've got one identity and you're trying to propagate it across a number of channels.
Always good to see you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Claudiu Popa is the CEO and Principal Risk Advisor at Informatica, a security and privacy company.